Packers jumping around. They rush 4. Plenty of time for John. Now squeezes, steps up in the pocket. LA can run. He's got the 10. Head first. He falls off the 5-yard line.
Manning out of the gun. Manning lets it fly. It's caught by Thomas. There's the record for Peyton Manning.
Rushing 4, ball comes out of the hands of Newton. It's on the ground and still on the ground. Picked up by T.J. Ward at the 4-yard line.
Here we go. First snap of the overtime. The Broncos have been in 3 overtime games this year. They won them all. Got him at the 40. It's Thomas at the 50. Stiff arm got him 3 to the 30. To the 20. Thomas to the 10. Denver's going on to New England. They win it on the first one.
And welcome to the show. I'm Mundungus Creevy, joined by my co-host Glenn Hauser, Mr. Boggins, and our special guest, Cameron Parker. We are a fan-led Broncos-based podcast, bringing you all sorts of Broncos-related craziness. You are currently listening to the MHRT Podcast, which airs every Tuesday at 7654 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. And also make sure you tune in to our other podcast, the Nothing Rhymes with Orange and Blue podcast that airs every Thursday at 7654 on the exact same platforms. And don't forget that you can also catch a brand new episode of Broncos Breakdown with Broncos Bill every Wednesday at 7654. Now, I'm not sure exactly what we're going to talk about because there's just no information.
It's been nothing but crickets.
No news.
Hashtag sarcasm. Hashtag sarcasm.
We do want to welcome in everybody that's in the chat. We got Mo Bad, Johnny. I'm not recognizing you. Avatar. Hold on. That's me. Bree, EJ, Jeffrey, Brian, Mark from Georgia. Hey, Mark. Hi, Mark. So, all of the craziness that has happened so far. Obviously, we'll get into the Broncos stuff, but there's also a crap ton of NFL news, such as the Chiefs will not go back to the Super Bowl. Ha, 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 ha. It's going to be the Bengals and the Rams. So Von Miller's in another one.
No more Brittany and no more Jackson.
No more Tom Brady either.
That's true. That's true.
You know, we talked about this on the podcast. This is like the one Super Bowl that I can think of where I just feel so much at peace. Like I can wear my Von Miller Super Bowl 50 jersey, still root for the Cincinnati Bengals, root for the Los Angeles Rams. And, I mean, I don't know. I could just sit back, enjoy my Doritos sweet chili chips with some, queso dip or whatever, and then just go to town and just enjoy myself.
Let me try it here. It's
that was when did Cam get a Doritos endorsement?
Breeze.
I know.
Was that more energetic? I just raised the mic. Said, Breeze in the chat.
Breeze.
Careful,
yeah.
you might take your soul.
I'm really excited.
There's got to be a soul there to take.
So here's my thing with the Super Bowl though. Like I think that the Bengals. I want to say that the Bengals have no chance, but like I've thought that the last couple weeks that they didn't really have much of a chance.
I was thinking the opposite.
Really? You want to see that? You want to see that Bengals offensive line against that pass rush of the Rams?
We keep hearing that the Bengals offensive line is terrible, and then they keep winning games. Like I understand the offensive line is bad.
Same. They haven't faced anything like this.
No.
But at the same time, the Rams have been a lot more up and down this year. So I don't know. I still think it's the Bengals.
But see, here's the thing: is like you're looking at it from like the Rams' perspective. The Rams have been in one of the most difficult divisions in all of football for the past like handful of years. The Cincinnati Bengals have been in one of the most unpredictable divisions in all of football, and two, like you're talking about a Bengals team that. I mean, I've been really high on them ever since they drafted Joe Burrow, and I thought it was, sooner rather than later, even with Zach Taylor in the mold. But it was just like you never could have seen a meteoric rise like this, going from even from the beginning of the season to where Zach Taylor was like top 3 as far as like one of the most, or one of the coaches that was on hot seat to be fired, to go from that to AFC Championship, to go from like Coach of the Year to Super Bowl. Like, you could never predict a situation, like that. And so just the fact that it unfolded and the whole situation like that is it's crazy to me. So, huge props to the Bengals too, for doing what they could. And by the way, huge props to the defensive coordinator. That's probably where the true props need to be for the Cincinnati Bengals as far as why they're in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I think it's next year. I honestly think that the Bengals next year are going to be like favorites for the Super Bowl, are pretty close to, because they're going to have like 50 something mil in cap space, plus the roster that they already have. They're not losing very much. So, I mean, they got to re-sign Uzma, but maybe like an ACL. So that's something they got to look at. But yeah, they're on the up and up. It's crazy.
Well, like if you look at it from like an emotional standpoint, it's like, all right, the Bengals haven't been to the Super Bowl in 30 something years. Like, it would be fantastic for them to win. But then you look at the Rams and they got Miller, they got Donald, they've got Stafford. Like, all three of those guys deserve to win a Super Bowl or another Super Bowl. So
I want Vaughn to win so that he comes back.
He's not coming back. Think about that. The Bengals have Burrow, Chase, and Higgins all on rookie deals. I mean, they can just spend all their money on an offensive line next year. But in mentioning Vaughn coming back, I don't know if you read the Sports Illustrated story that came out the other day, but one thing that jumped out at me, and I didn't see it mentioned anywhere, was he put his house on the market almost instantly in Denver. So my thought is, if he was ever planning on coming back, he probably wouldn't sell the house that has Club 58 in the basement. So
maybe he wanted another house. Glenn. But I mean, honestly, like,
going back to that annoying, how annoying is Mundungus after that last comment?
10.
He's a 12.
10. But like, everything that we're talking about right now doesn't matter at all, because Tom Brady is retiring. So that's going to be the headline for the next 5 years.
Since Bree is listening, make sure you say that about 15,000 times. Okay, since she's like the biggest Tom Brady supporter. So make sure that you keep saying that Tom Brady retired, that Tom Brady retired, and that Tom Brady retired, and then Tom Brady retired.
I've heard of this, yes. Mm-hmm.
Who?
Yeah, that's what I was saying the whole entire time. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. It's fine. Whatever. Like, I've gotten to a point where it's just like, after last year when he took a team his first year to the Super Bowl, it's just like, fine, whatever. You're the GOAT. That's fine. Whatever. Let's move on, and we can talk about underneath him who the greatest is. Because I mean, after 7 Super Bowl wins, I mean, what are you gonna say? Like, what are you going to say?
Now, I did see that someone had said that Tom Brady was the greatest athlete of all time. I don't agree with that.
Who said that?
But he's the great. No, there was an ESPN story on it.
Yeah, there was.
There was an ESPN story about how he's the greatest athlete of all time. And it's like, well, I'm not going to agree with athlete, but like the greatest quarterback of all time, absolutely.
I mean, maybe in the aspect that like quarterback is the hardest position to play in all of sports, and then he is the best at that of all time. Maybe that's what they were trying to go with, but like
that's the way they played it.
Yeah, athleticism. No.
My favorite poster is the one where he's going to dunk and he's launching from the free throw line. I mean,
I was gonna say the biggest deter from that argument as far as him being the best athlete. No, it's just go call up Tom Brady's combine tape. Like literally.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's like the greatest combine performance of all time.
I mean, that was like if you're having like an average Joe contest, and you're there to try out, go run a 40. And
I like how they ran with his combine pictures, like this guy.
Yeah, I also was watching the 2003 the All-Star, whatever they used to do, the skills contest in the All-Star weekend, or All-Star not weekend.
Need to bring that back, by the way.
Yeah, I know. It was interesting to watch. It was like him, Brad Johnson.
Harbaugh was in that, wasn't he?
I don't think it was in that one that he was in. And then who is the quarterback for the Jags? Mark Brunell. It was just like, it was deep, but like in no way did Tom Brady look good, accurate, or like athletically.
That's the supreme male physique. Get it right.
So that means we're all pretty supreme, right?
Yeah.
Sure. All right. So let's.
Mike's burrito supreme. But
oh, dang it, man! You're gonna take my joke.
Burrito Grande. Thank you. All right. So let's take a quick spin around some coaching hires. We got Dan Quinn staying with Dallas as a defensive coordinator. The Vikings are bringing in Jim Harbaugh for an interview. The Bears hired Matt Eberflus. Did I say that right?
Eberflus.
And then hiring Matt Getsy's OC. So obviously that takes him out.
Who's Matt Getsy?
Of any running for Denver.
Luke, you mean?
Who's Matt Getsy?
Yeah, why'd I put Matt? Luke. Why'd I put
Luke.
Matt? I don't know. Whatever. Packers promoted Andy Stenovich to their OC. And he was the top choice for Hackett for OC, right?
He was.
Stenovich.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Giants hired Brian Daboll as their head coach. And then the worst one, the Raiders hired Josh McDaniels as their head coach.
I don't understand. How is that the worst one?
I don't know if it's the worst or not.
Everyone.
I mean worst for the Broncos.
Oh, okay, maybe. Yeah. I like people are so stuck in 2009. It's crazy to me. Like he spent like 12 years. What is he? I can't do math. Whatever. Over a decade, with the Patriots behind one of the best coach of all time. And has learned, like, don't get me wrong, he screwed over the Colts, but you don't know. I mean, I don't know that scenario or whatever. He was a D-bag there, but I mean, it seems like he is very aware of his lack of people skills in the past and has worked on it. And it's not like anyone's taken away from his brilliant offensive mind, which is now is going to have Derek Carr. So I don't think it's something to just brush off. I think that we're going to have to deal with that. And Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert next year, which is not something I'm looking forward to.
I was shocked at his comments yesterday. I mean, I obviously don't think very highly of the guy, but man, I was impressed. I mean, what self-awareness that was certainly honesty when he talked about his experience with the Broncos and what he's learned from that. I mean, that was great. He it'll be interesting to see what he does with Derek Carr and how Carr reacts to him. But the guy's a winner. The Patriots had no problem bringing him right back and placing him right where he was. So for a huge salary.
Yeah.
So
perhaps more importantly, this one's for Bree. He admitted that was a fumble in that game. Just wanted to throw that out there. We'll have some faux avocado toast as a toast to that one.
I was gonna say, like, the most important thing is, like, to what you guys were talking about, take the name out of it for a second. Like you go into that interview and, like, with some of the history, and you think of, like, what he potentially learned from the first job to the second job. That's about as impressive an answer as you're ever going to get, talking about this is exactly what went wrong, this is exactly where things crashed and burned, and this is how things are going to unfold with the Las Vegas Raiders. So I mean, like, from a McDaniels, we'll just say personality / PR perspective, I'll just say it for that point of view, it was great. Like, because you want to make sure that you are selling your Raiders fan base, especially coming from the Broncos, where you coached in the AFC West. You want to prove to them that what you did in the Broncos is not what's going to happen with your Raiders football team. And so I think that the other point too, along with this Raiders team, why I'm a little bit scared too, is, like, you look at it from the player personnel perspective, there are some similarities to what he's coming into from New England. You already got a Hunter Renfrow, who, Julian Edelman, anyone? I mean, like, the guy is he's almost like made to be like a New England wide receiver. So then you already have that. You have one of the tight end, greats of the National Football League right now, Darren Waller, who we all know with the stuff that they've been able to do with Rob Gronkowski and Aaron Hernandez when he was successful. So I mean, it's just like he's clearly shown the propensity to be a really successful offensive mind. Even with that, and then to the likes of what he was able to do with Cam freaking Newton, and then bringing Mac Jones to the fold, of potentially bringing these comparisons of, he might be the next Tom Brady by the way he is as a personality. So it's just like, there are things to be alarmed with, as far as what he brings from the pro personnel side. Do I love Josh McDaniels? No, I absolutely despise the guy, because the stuff with the Indianapolis Colts is still weighing much into my brain, with what he was able to do there. But I mean, just from the football perspective, it scares me with that hire with McDaniels to the Raiders.
My biggest takeaway from what Cam just said was Josh McDaniels is responsible for Aaron Hernandez. So, I mean, I'm just going to leave it.
Well, I was going to say kind of the same thing, like Aaron Hernandez being successful at what? Because he was successful at two things there for a little bit.
Okay. All right.
Like, you guys are so 2013,
Well, and then there's obviously the news about Brian Flores and the Rooney Rule. Now, I don't want to get too far into it. That's a whole thing. I don't want to dig into race and politics and all that. I will. The only thing I'll say, and then you guys are more than welcome to chime in. I think that the Rooney Rule is stupid. I understand the idea behind it, and I'm with the idea behind it, but the Rooney Rule itself doesn't work, and I don't think should be there.
Yeah, I think the problem is that we live in a world where that kind of rule is necessary, and then when it becomes necessary, there are loopholes, and it just doesn't work. And so now people are brought in out of just because they have to, technically, not because they actually want that coaching prospect. So then it becomes an even more problem. But if the allegations of John Elway and Joe Ellis are true, that is completely unprofessional and should not be a thing at all. Every interview that you have needs to be taken seriously. That's what the point of the Rooney Rule is to give people opportunities. So when they're brought that opportunity, even if they weren't necessarily, you didn't necessarily have interest in that coaching prospect, now they're sitting there in front of you, and you're supposed to legitimately take them seriously and give them the opportunity, and then maybe they will change your mind. But unfortunately, it's become this crazy thing where people can just, or you just bring it, maybe an Eric Bieniemy or whatever, you just technically have to bring them in even though you have no intention of hiring whatsoever.
Yeah, that's basically therein lies my issue with it. And that was for anybody, for clarification's sake, that was the whole clarification that I made the tweet earlier about. You should be hiring a coach or a candidate just for the simple fact that he is the most qualified candidate. You shouldn't. Yeah. The Rooney Rule should not matter, but the reason why it's in place is everything that Boggins alluded to. The reason why it's in place is so that you can take a chance on a guy that may be a less fortunate or something like that, like a coach that may even be deserving of that opportunity. And I think that sometimes so I understand the absolute certainty of inserting the rule. The problem is to also what Boggins talked about is those loopholes. You talk about everything from the standpoint of, let's go bring in, let's go bring in Eric Bieniemy. Now, granted, Eric Bieniemy is a little bit of a wild card with all of that, but at the same time, it's he's got a lot of off-field issues. So, and potentially he doesn't interview well. So there's some things that could trigger him not potentially being the best qualified candidate. So it's just but then you got cases like Brian Flores, who did so well with Miami. He should be a deserving candidate, or Jim Caldwell, those types of cases where he probably should be in the National Football League right now. And frankly, even to go with college for a little bit, if the Rooney Rule wasn't a thing and race wasn't necessarily at the forefront and we were hiring the best possible candidate, David Shaw would probably be having a job in the National Football League here at some point. Yep. So, it's just my thing, not necessarily to talk fully on the whole Rooney Rule thing, was if the John Elway and stuff was true with the Denver Broncos, and this is the most important and factual thing to circle back with a completely different point. If that's true, I don't want him touching ownership with a 10-foot pole. Uh-huh. That's the most important thing. If it's true, I don't want him touching it. I really don't.
Absolutely.
And to Boggins' point about just the opportunity to present yourself and being taken seriously and everything, I mean, George Payton, you just know that group, regardless of who they talked to, regardless if it was somebody that that didn't have a lot of experience or from any team, they took all those interviews seriously. You just know that happened. And how many times have we heard that somebody is the favorite, even in this case, that Dan Quinn was a favorite. Then when they actually took an interview with Hackett and took it seriously, all of a sudden he blew him away. What if Flores had blown these guys away? Had they, again, if this is true with these allegations, I mean, Mike Liss has put out some tweets that run counter to that, but again, it's a shame. And like Cam, if any of that is accurate, ownership, it should be completely out of the question.
From my perspective, I think that the rule has some validity just to ensure opportunities are provided, at least as an option. I do agree that if some of these allegations do come to fruition and prove to be true, it certainly shows an undermining of the spirit of the rule. And a lot of times in the law, the spirit of the rule or the spirit of the law is in fact as big as the actual written kind of words within the law itself. And really the spirit of this of the rule within the NFL, if you were to apply it in terms of the legal setting, which is part of my background, is you need to factor that in as well. And the spirit of the Rooney Rule was not just to have someone that checks the box, which I think is what a lot of what you guys were kind of alluding to in some of your responses. The spirit of the rule is to actually give legitimate and valid chances to deserving coaching candidates throughout the process. And certainly I would agree with what Boggins said earlier, is if some of these allegations prove to be accurate and true that are made against particularly John Elway and Joe Ellis in terms of how they showed up to the meeting, and if those notes that were provided were not theirs but rather the staff that were there, I think that shows some validity to what Brian Flores has brought forward against the Broncos. I do think that the Broncos are on slightly firmer ground than, say, some of the others that are mentioned in the suit, simply because we have not one but two coaching cycles. The first coaching cycle where we ended up with eventually landed with Kubiak, we did actually make an attempt to bring in Vance Joseph, but we were denied that opportunity. And that would certainly run as a direct counter to the narrative that's currently being presented by Flores. And then we eventually hired him as our head coach the next coaching cycle, which kind of goes to show that, our organization is really not perhaps the best example of what they're trying to showcase as being in, that group.
There is a statement that the Broncos just released, if you want me to read it real quick.
Well, I kind of want to summarize what MHRT is going to stand for on this topic, and then we'll kind of go into that.
Okay.
I just kind of want to summarize like MHRT as a network as a whole, and I want to try to say this the right way. We believe that no matter the race, the sex, the religion of the candidate, the best candidate should be hired to whatever team he's interviewing for. Now, if the Rooney Rule helps that, then let's do it. But if the Rooney Rule needs some changes, or if something else needs to be implemented, let's do whatever helps make it an equal process for all. Did I say that right?
Yeah,
sure. Yeah.
Okay. So that's the official stance.
Amen.
So here's the quick Broncos statement. I haven't. The allegations from Brian Flores directed towards the Denver Broncos in today's court filing are blatantly false. Our interview with Mr. Flores regarding our head coaching position began promptly at the scheduled time of 7:30 a.m. on January 5th, 2019 in a Providence, Rhode Island hotel. There were 5 Broncos executives present for the interview, which lasted approximately 3.5 hours, the fully allotted time, and concluded shortly before 11 a.m. Pages of detailed notes, analysis, and evaluations from our interview demonstrate the depth of our conversation and sincere interest in Mr. Flores as a head coaching candidate. Our process was thorough and fair to determine the most qualified candidate for our head coaching position. Broncos will vigorously defend the integrity and values of our organization and its employees from such baseless and disparaging claims.
Yeah, and
Right.
I think like you kind of comes down to like one side versus the other, and like I mean Albright was also saying that there's going to be documentation of this, and it'll kind of come out and what's what. But at the end at the end of the day, you kind of just have to take it for what it is and just try to like the NFL needs to get better all around. Like this is a hard issue. NFL needs to get better all around, and it's not just because the Broncos were necessarily named doesn't mean it's not like Broncos. You know what I mean? It's like a bigger. They even named what John Doe, like 30 whatever other teams or 29 other teams or whatever. So it's like it's something that's definitely a bigger issue, and it's just hopefully it gets resolved.
And Cam, I'll get to you in a second. I do want to clarify. Travis Tarbox is saying that it's sad that Flores is suing the Broncos. He's not actually suing the Broncos. Yeah. He's suing the Giants and the NFL, right? And then the Broncos were just used as an example in the lawsuit, right?
But they were just the team that was mentioned within that. Like they were a team.
Right. So he's not suing the Broncos. They were just an example.
Yeah. I have to go back and read the suit. I actually have a link to actually read the legal filing. I actually intend to read it after the show. Like I said, I actually have a legal background, so I'll digest it and get back to you.
Well, I was going to say it's interesting that he's suing the Giants in the NFL and not the Dolphins in the NFL.
Yeah, but did you see the Bill Belichick text that was named in the suit?
The reasoning that he put in the lawsuit as to why he's no longer the head coach of the Dolphins, I would assume that would be something that you could add to the lawsuit, but I don't know.
I mean, like anything you can bring forth as evidence, those text messages are clearly evidence.
They are named.
Yeah, Dolphins are.
The defendants in the case is the National Football League, New York Football Giants, Miami Dolphins, Denver Broncos, and John Doe teams 1 through 29. So it's
okay. If you sue the NFL, do you have to? You basically have to sue every team individually, right? Because the NFL is composed with the owners as
No, you don't. No, you don't. No. The NFL is an entity. Each team is its own entity within the conglomerate, and then you can also name individuals within the teams if you feel that they can be individually highlighted. I can only speak for specifically here in Canada. That's how it works.
So I'm assuming that since it's a Rooney Rule lawsuit, that's probably why he's naming all 32 teams.
Correct.
Yeah.
Cam, go ahead.
I was going to say, to circle back to what Rich was talking about the head coaching cycle, the Broncos hired Vance Joseph previously to what Rich was talking about. And then in that cycle, they were interviewing Brian Flores and stuff within that search. So the thing is like, and even too, if you look at that search and I kind of have coming back to it, obviously you would have imagined a more extensive search from John Elway company at that point in time, based on going from Vance Joseph, David Tobe to Kyle Shanahan. But the thing is, if you actually look at every single candidate that they interviewed, they were all qualified candidates. If you sort of boil it all down, I mean, they interviewed Zach Taylor. What do we all know about Zach Taylor right now? They interviewed Brian Flores. Brian Flores ended up taking, his team almost from nothing to a 500 football team, and probably, we'll be honest, should never have been fired from Miami. He honestly should never have been fired from Miami. Agreed. But the fact is that he was used as sort of a scapegoat with whatever reason, and maybe that's in this underlying, lawsuit that's been going on with Flores. And I think it's fair to say that probably the majority of the lawsuit is associated with the Miami Dolphins and the New England Patriots. But I mean, it's just from my vantage point, it was just like the Broncos also, for the most part, did interview qualified candidates for the position. Now, as far as the interview process itself, that's where you could probably see the whole loophole with it, as far as, John Elway going in, missing about an hour of the interview, going in late by an hour, going in drunk and everything. Like, I mean, like that is a whole other story. Like that just goes surely to professionalism and just something that, again, to circle back real quick, if that is something that happened, him going in to the office with liquor on his breath, I'm not wanting him to touch anything associated with the Broncos anymore. And it's worth noting that even despite the notoriety that Elway does have with Broncos country and the fan base and the Broncos team, there is a section of people that have met John Elway or known John Elway that either love the guy or they actually despise the guy. So like there is a section of a fan base that just does not like the person who is John Elway.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to being able to separate the name and how it's associated with the Broncos and the man himself. Like, obviously, John Elway is the Denver Broncos when you look back at, he was the guy that won you 2 Super Bowls. He's the one that took you to 5, and then he came in as GM and brought you to another 2. But the person that represents the Broncos is not the same one outside of the Broncos and away from the Broncos. Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to separate the 2.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm going to just quickly disagree with one thing you said, Cam.
That's not allowed.
Kind of well, it is, so deal with it.
Rich doesn't disagree with any.
Yeah, so I actually think that the Dolphins were fully within their right to fire Flores if there was, in fact, reasons behind it. So, as an example, we can all collectively generally agree that bringing in the right people for the right job, regardless of who they are, what they look like, etc., should be a standard practice. But if Flores was unprofessional when he was there, if he was abrasive when he was there, if he was any of those things and other things that we haven't heard rumors about, then I mean, absolutely, he should have been fired by the Miami Dolphins. And of course, Brian Flores is not going to come out in a lawsuit and say, I understand why I was fired because I did all of these things wrong. He's going to come out in a suit and be like,
he's a good person, he will.
Well, no, I agree with that, but my point is that that's just not the way life works when you're suing people, right? So
I agree.
Yeah.
So
that's my only point of contention.
Let's kind of flip the narrative from the NFL and switch to Broncos stuff. Now, first, everybody hit those thumbs up. Hit those thumbs up on the video. That helps.
So far for the Broncos that we're not even considered NFL anymore.
Well, but we're the special side of the NFL.
Yeah,
we're special. Special.
We could be like,
and obviously we're going to get to the head coach. I mean, that's a big one. But the first thing I want to talk about is something that came out today, which is Denver is officially in the process of being sold. The Broncos, everything has been cleared from the way of the Broncos. They're officially, on the market, I guess. Johnny was asking if we were still putting together a bid as MHRT. I mean, I'm in for 20. If you guys are in for 20, we'll offer
I'm in
$200
discussions with my banker right now. The last time a Canadian came in and bought the Broncos, it worked out really well for the organization. So I'll let you know what happens there.
Now, I did have a question for all of you guys.
Oh, is that the problem, Richard?
No, I refuse to instill a trust. It'll be some form of battle royale with the best kid winning.
I just want to see the statue of Rich in front of the stage.
I did have a quick question for everybody. Would the ownership situation like the Packers be good for the Broncos, where it's owned by fans and led by a president, but it's not, they don't really have an owner other than the city, basically the city of Green Bay or the fans?
I just don't want that.
I mean, is that a good way to do it? Is that a way to make sure that you never
too many cooks in the kitchen?
Okay.
I think it's too many cooks in the kitchen. I think that you need a prominent owner. Established owner.
EJ says his bank denied his load request for $4 billion. He's not going to be the new owner. Dang it.
I'm telling you, first thing I would do is change the uniforms. First thing I would do. Uniforms and the helmet.
A mix of the two?
What do you mean a mix of the two?
A mix of the old D logo with the new.
Kind of,
mix the colors with logos.
I'm a big fan of those the Color Rush helmets. Oh, yeah. The dark blue with the D on them.
With the orange and blue.
Yeah, big fan.
Uniforms. Oh, cool. Brad Smith says, "Hey guys, hello from down under. Again, after season ends, how long till we hear any trade news? Fingers crossed we keep Jerry Jeudy. Thoughts?" I think this was. I'm going to assume you're talking about Aaron Rodgers. My guess is that it's going to be end of February, beginning of March, because he said he was going to make his decision before free agency started, to be fair to everyone.
He also just talked about that he has sat down with Matt LaFleur recently and kind of planned for next year. But it's complicated with Rodgers because like how much of it is like real intent and others is just like kind of making things okay with Matt LaFleur to the point where it's just like getting through the day. Like, oh yeah, sure, man. We can talk about next year, and then he really
collegerealtor.com,
yeah. Well, he sold his house, didn't he?
Hey, he sold his house he sold his house in San Diego. Yeah. So I think that even with that report that came out with meeting with LaFleur, I think that actually happened like right after they lost their playoff game. And and we all know what happened after. I mean, Luke Getsy goes over to Chicago. Stenovich gets promoted. Nathaniel Hackett heads over to Denver. Potentially Justin Uteen or Outen or however you say his last name.
That's what I was going to ask.
Is probably the Broncos' offensive coordinator, it seems. So, I mean, there's so much change that's been happening with Green Bay. And then also the factoring of Tom Brady's retirement. I highly doubt that Aaron Rodgers is going to be retiring simply because they're both going to be going into the whole induction. Between maybe him, Big Ben, Big Ben, and Tom Brady, I just can't see it. So it really does rule out the possibility that he's going to retire, which thus leads to the question: okay, it's Green Bay or it's another football team,
right? So speaking about ownership, it looks like the Broncos, not Denver, have been evaluated at the top end of $3 billion, so 3.7, 3.8. But there's an over-under on Denver going for more than 4.
Oh yeah,
I think there was a guess at like 4.1, 4.2.
Yeah,
I'll probably think 4.2 to 4.5.
Yeah, the highest bidder, and it's gonna
Well,
go
we
up.
know that we were talking about Robert Smith. He's not bidding on it. Yeah. And then there was another billionaire that Boggins you mentioned earlier. I don't remember what his name was.
I asked Woody Page about it, and then he said nope.
Yeah, so he's out. So I mean, we know we still have an Elway group. We still have a Manning group. Other than that, allegedly. Other than that, we don't really have any other names. I mean, is there a Bolin group?
No,
like Brittany Bolin
was trying to put something together.
I would not be surprised if they did, just for the simple fact that I think it also came out that Cliff was alluding to that the Bolins were a little bit disappointed with it going to a sale. So I would not be surprised that there is some ownership involved as far as some sort of group of the Bolins. Just hopefully it doesn't include Johnny Bolin.
Well, I was going to say, what network's going to put a reality show of Johnny Bolin after he gets a check for $1 million?
Put him on the E Network.
It's like if Charlie Sheen had a reality show.
It's called
Real Husbands of Denver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Rolling with Bolin.
Rolling.
Oh man. Let's see here. Let's go with Travis
the
Starbuck
Broncos
says,
logo on a flamingo beach ball.
Right.
If we don't get Rodgers and Wilson, I hope we go tackle or edge at 9. And in the second, we take Malik Willis. He's the new age quarterback. Also, I've got 5 on it.
I've got 5 on it.
I mean, are there when you go back and look at the draft, I don't think there's a tackle that's worth the number 9 pick. I know there's edge.
Unless Neil falls.
No, there's Iquanu too.
Yeah, they're
Iquan.
Who's the 6'8", like 400-pound?
That's Daniel Fa'alele.
Yeah, is he left or right? Do we know?
Right. He was gonna. It was a potential that he was gonna enter last year, but he decided to stay, which is good because he was really raw. And now he's coming out, and people are noticing.
He won't be 9, but he might be. He'll be back at the end of the first round. More like as far as if you were to do like a very high end projection, he's the back of the end first rounder for sure.
If he tests well, definitely.
But to the person's point about Malik Willis, I could see Denver potentially being interested in Malik Willis because it just takes one team. Like it isn't just I mean it from the team perspective. Like it just takes one team, and it just takes a quarterback to wow you in an interview process, to as far as to potentially take a swing on him, and especially if Hackett is this innovative guy, and he's bringing in a guy like a Clint Kubiak potentially for a offensive position. I would not be shocked out of the realm of possibility that the Broncos bring on a passing game coordinator and a run game coordinator for their football team. So they could be interested in a guy like a Malik Willis. And if Hackett is that innovative guy, would not be shocked if the Broncos took a shot on him. Because I think from everything we heard from the first day or the first practice or second practice of the Senior Bowl is that he had the 5 best throws of the day and the 5 worst throws of the day. So that kind of tells you where Willis is.
Yeah, the whole Senior Bowl right now, everyone keeps talking about the QBs. I mean, it's only been day 1, but like no one's looking good. And Malik Willis is kind of everyone talks about Josh Allen now, but like back when Josh Allen was coming out, he was essentially the same as far as like rawness. He was a raw player with traits, came from a smaller division. Like that's what Malik Willis is, but he's smaller. If Malik Willis was the size of Josh Allen, like height wise, he would be probably top 10 pick just because of the tools. But he makes me so nervous because of his processing and his reads sometimes. But he is insanely athletic, very stocky, 6'1". The dude can run and has a big arm, but I just think you would need to have another quarterback. You would have to have another quarterback in place to start, to have him sit behind, like a Trey Lance situation.
Yeah. Oh, and this is kind of how I want to spin into the coach. Like you look at the last 5 years, you got Joseph and you got Fangio. I don't trust bringing in a raw quarterback, Drew Lock, into those coaches and then trying to develop that quarterback with them. With Nathaniel Hackett, I don't have that concern. Like go get a raw quarterback, 2nd round, maybe 3rd round, and let Hackett develop him. At least that's my hope. Seeing with how he's worked with quarterbacks before, I don't have an issue with getting a quarterback and letting them sit and develop under Nathaniel Hackett.
You maybe go that route if we don't get an elite pass rusher. Passer.
Yeah.
If we don't get an elite veteran, then maybe you just throw caution into the wind and just go with a build up. But this roster is only going to last so long.
That's kind of where I wanted to go with this question from Chronicles of the Black Hole. Are you guys happy about your new head coach? Abso-frickin-lutely.
Excited.
Cameron hates him though. He told me.
I don't know if he can hack it.
Oh, haven't heard that before.
All right, with that, we're going to end the show today.
Yeah. With Kenny Pickett, and Hackett walks over to his record collection and he starts looking through and he pulls out Jewel and then he puts her song Hands on the turntable. Just want to see Kenny's face when that happens.
That was one of the greatest videos.
This is a question that I've gotten a couple times. You don't think Hackett can fix Drew Lock? And I talked to Glenn about this a couple days ago. Nick Ferguson was actually talking about it on a podcast that he did, where he said that at some point, a quarterback is what a quarterback is. You might get some fluctuations between good and bad, but at some point, a quarterback is what he is, and you're not going to get a whole lot more out of him. I think Drew Lock is pretty darn close to being what he is, and we're just going to have to kind of suck it up and deal with it. Do I think he can play better under Hackett? Yes. In the right scheme, he would be able to play better, but he's not going to be that barn-burning, 60 points per game franchise quarterback. He's going to be closer to what we've seen over the last year.
Yeah, and even too, I think that's also a proponent of not taking a quarterback in this draft class, because it's like Drew Lock came in here as a project, and Drew Lock is still a project. I mean, we still have no idea what he is, and so if you're looking at it from the standpoint of trying to go out and get a quarterback, now granted, all that can not necessarily matter, and then the Broncos can go into the draft and go draft Carson Strong or Malik Willis or Kenny Pickett or Matt Corral for all we know. But I mean, the thing is clearly though, if Hackett is wanting to go to a Shanahan type of offense, we clearly saw the type of success that Drew Lock was able to pull with Rick Scangarello when he was able to take over in that Drew Sember, as everybody liked to coin it, when he went 4-1. So, I mean, like, he clearly values himself and his skill set within that offense. But with everything we've seen in the last 2 years, was that enough to regress so much that we have no idea what we're going to get anymore still with the Shannon type of offense block? So I don't know.
You mentioned Matt
I think
Corral.
so.
Has anyone heard anything about his injury? I have not heard an update on his condition at all.
He got hurt.
He got hurt
Yeah.
the whole game, dude.
Yeah, isn't he? I haven't really looked back into it. I've been watching so much tape on it on him, and I'm just kind of like just falling out of like my. I've told people before, when people ask me about certain quarterbacks, I just usually just say sure when compared to like when they're comparing the ones. It's just like this is such a mixed bag this year that it's just like, yeah, whatever.
How would you rank them right now? Top three.
Top three. It like, I swear to you, it depends on the situation. It depends on where they're going.
Yeah, it kind of depends on scheme and team.
Yeah, us. If we had to pick a quarterback at 9, and okay, in this situation, do we have a quarterback that's projected to start over this quarterback?
Who we have right now?
Who we have right now? Oh
Yeah.
gosh. Okay. God,
So you're looking at
that situation.
Rippin and Lock.
Yeah,
Is what we have right now, right?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. It just pick first round. Like who
Okay, fine. I would probably have to go pick it.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
So
but I would probably have to go pick it, or hopefully certain people aren't listening. Or Sam Howell, just because he.
Calm down. We're live.
I like
Don't do that.
the sturdiness as far as size, and I think you can do a lot with him. But there's still a lot to do there. But
So
I
that's a
could
negative
make
on
a
Carson
case.
Strong then.
I was going to say Carson Strong.
I wouldn't take him first round. No.
Yeah, but
early second.
Yeah, or late first. Like if you wanted to trade it, here's my thing. If we are going to get a QB in the first round, I would much rather trade back into the first round at the late end of the first round for the value, and then be able to have that 5th-year option. Because I think if you're going to do this, having an extra year is a big thing.
Landon says Corral's injury was an ankle sprain. Thank you, Landon.
But I was just going to say, so I don't think you're wrong. Like as far as like the overall value is, and that goes with anybody from this quarterback class. Like if you can take anybody from that within that second round to late first round, value, you take that any day of the week. But I just think if we're strictly talking people that would probably come in and start, we're also talking about that right now in February. A lot's going to change from now until, April. I mean, think about it from the 2018 draft perspective.
Wow.
Sam Darnold was supposed to go number 1 overall, and then the Senior Bowl happened. But granted, we didn't know anything in terms of that. But like the Senior Bowl happened, and to speak from a Broncos perspective, he wanted to be a Broncos country wanted Baker Mayfield like no other.
Yeah.
And then to circle back, like many months later, I mean, he ends up becoming the number 1 overall pick to the Cleveland Browns. So just anything can happen. But as far as like Carson Strong, and this is my take with Carson Strong, he has just got an absolute arm on him. And along with the fact that it seems like his knee is checking out, that it seems like he could seem to be like one of those types of guys that could jump all the way up to the very like front of the board along with Pickett, to where he could be the first quarterback on the board. And I say that just like because I'm also a baseball guy, and I think just from a scout's perspective, like if you're thinking from a scout's perspective, like one of the very first things they look at is just pure arm strength, and he's got it in spades, like clearly.
Yeah, but then you're going like the Drew Lock route, and you're like, ooh, big arm. And like I get it. Like Carson Strong reads better. Like again with the division. And I just think that the NFL is really going away from anti-mobile quarterbacks. Like I think it's a big knock on a quarterback when he is as slow as he is. If he goes into the combine and runs something
4.2.
No, yeah. If he goes into the combine and does something like
he's got a robotic knee on him now.
I think Carson Strong will benefit the most out of any of the other quarterbacks at the combine, outside of the interviews and stuff like that. But and I think Malik Willis will benefit the most from Senior Bowl. I mean, I think overall everybody's going to benefit the most from the Senior Bowl because I think it's such a mixed bag, and I think you're not going to find out a whole lot out of these quarterbacks when it comes combine time, especially if Pickett isn't going to show what his hands are. I just see him. He's also the tallest in the draft, though. He's got that for him, or the tallest quarterback as far as.
So I've heard some interesting things here, but I'm curious if you've already identified that Drew did the best in this general style of offense because it clearly fit his overall skill sets, his ability, his playing ability, all that.
Barely though.
Yeah, well, he was a young quarterback, and you knew he was a 1 to 2 year project, or even a 3-year project coming out of the draft. But then on the flip side, I'm hearing both of you talk about how these young quarterbacks, if they're in the right system and they have the right scheme around them, like to me, it's almost like you're I'm not trying to critique both. It's just general observation. It's almost like it's like counter to what you're talking about, Drew Lock, right? So if you remove the scheme that he did the best in, Drew Lock, and then move to a scheme that he didn't look great in with Pat Shurmur, who I'm trying to forget the name of permanently in my mind.
That guy.
Yeah, that guy. Then to me, I struggle to see how or why we wouldn't want to have Drew Lock back in a zone scheme like Hackett has claimed that he wants to run, and see if he can start making the progress that we all thought he could, in theory, in his second and third years with our team. And I don't want to try and equate him to other quarterbacks that we've seen make improvements even later in their careers. But when you look at Tannehill, for example, how he has taken a kind of an additional jump with a run-heavy style offense with the Titans and actually improved some of his accuracy and kind of processing stuff. I do wonder if maybe Drew could benefit from finally going back to a scheme that better fits his skill sets.
Well, that's what I was kind of saying for before, because like if you're gonna, like, I don't want to pick a QB in the first round. I was forced to make a choice. You understand me? I was forced to make a choice. I don't want that. I would go with Drew Lock over any, like, using a first round pick on any of these quarterbacks. Absolutely. 100%. Because
if you're having to start a rookie quarterback, having to start a rookie quarterback this year,
that's true.
There's a problem.
Outside of value,
something went wrong.
I mean, not outside of value. For the value, I like, because Drew's in his last year's contract, whatever. Like, play him, go get a Joe Schmo vet to sit with him or whatever, and just, like, I don't know, run it out.
I honestly think there's 3 options at quarterback at this point. I'm going to rank them first, second, third. The first option, I think, is what Denver's running with, which is we're going after Rodgers, and if not, then Wilson. I think that's pretty obvious. That's their number 1 choice. Yeah. Number 2, I believe, is that they would bring in a free agent quarterback or trade for one, like a lower one, to bridge while they draft a rookie. And third would be to run it back with Drew Lock and draft a rookie.
There's a wild.
I don't like option 3.
I think there's a wild card in this mix, though, and that is, now granted, I don't think it's going to be, what is it? Maybe not this year. But I think it's.
You say Ryan Fitzpatrick, we're best friends forever.
But I think it's an extreme wild card, because if they bring in Clint Kubiak, I think the wild card is Kirk Cousins. I am dead serious. And then not only that, I think there's another wild card within this, and that is Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that if we're talking this year, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a true wild card with this. This is the Shanahan system. And everything in the overall fit. I mean, and if we're talking strictly resume, the guy is, I mean, he's been to a few NFC championship games. Now, if you were to ask me, that's more predicated on the coaching. But I mean, like, that's, if you're looking at just resume, I mean, Garoppolo fits that entire bill of potentially what you're looking for to get back. Now, he's not going to be that type of guy that's going to go toe to toe with Herbert and Mahomes in your division, but it might be enough that you can potentially groom your quarterback.
Mike, going back to
Okay,
Sean Ireland,
I was going to grab both of Sean's right here.
Yeah.
Broncos fans, a Packers fan here. I just want to let you all know that it's not where the Packers want to trade Aaron. It's where Aaron wants to be traded, which would probably be Denver. And then he followed that up with a response to EJ, said, no, Aaron and the Packers agreed that if Aaron still wants out, they would discuss trading him to a team of his choosing.
So if Sean's still in the chat, I'd like to ask him two questions. One, what does he think the compensation would be for Aaron? And what does he think about Maurice Drayton being fired as special teams coach of the Packers today?
And then number three, would he want Tom McMahon? Because I think McMahon, I think Tom McMahon and Aaron Rodgers trade would be quite fair.
That's fair.
Okay, so we talked a lot about quarterback. Let's kind of spin it back to, guess what? The Denver Broncos hired Nathaniel Hackett as their head coach.
Hey.
Yeah, and until he tells me otherwise, his name is Coach Hackett.
Coach
Hackett, if you want to tell me personally, reach out and let me know what you want me to call you. I'm calling you Coach Hackett. But you're gonna have to come on the show and tell me that.
Going back to like the draft thing when it comes to Nathaniel Hackett, usually I would say last year I would say there's no chance of us drafting a quarterback in the first round because last year there was a better class and we didn't do it. However, George Payton likes to cater to his coaches and give his coaches what the coach needs or wants. And if Hackett wants a QB,
he's going to get it.
He might get it.
Yeah.
So John, if you haven't seen the Behind the Broncos that came out yesterday, and I know we all five of us have, it is magical. It's incredible. He is. I mean, I think Sarah was the first person to reference Ted Lasso with him, and it's absolutely true. Boggins sent that to us last night when I was watching it. You know, this guy showing his record collection and how he was going to play the music, going through a box and finding like a unicorn costume, a gold suit, which Albright
ran with you.
And then you see him actually picking up the box and taking it because he's like,
it's obvious that this is important. It has to come with me.
Right.
On the family trip for the introduction. Like this guy. But when you see some interaction with him FaceTiming Justin Simmons, and when you see him with his family, like in his empty office, it got me choked up, man. I mean, I am so excited about the possibility. This guy's attitude. He's and I liked Vic, but man, this is just like not even remotely close to what the Broncos have had the last 3 years.
And Glenn knows, like, I am not a fan of watching press conferences, like, especially during like in the middle of the season, because you just get a bunch of coach talk and it doesn't mean what it actually means. So I don't like it. But dude, that was like the most intense of like I've ever paid attention to a press conference in my life. Like I was on the floor a couple times.
Yeah, and
stuff.
What were you doing? Like what was that?
Well, like when he said John Elway, I want that signed jersey, and I'm not kidding. Like I was done. Like, and then he talked about marrying Princess Leia, and then it's like she's so mad at me right now. I was on the floor. Sean answers your question. Says Maurice should be locked out of the building, it should take 2 firsts and Judy, assuming you sign Devante, because the Packers can't tag him because they're $44 million over the cap.
So what I was just going to say, and that was, I think, one of the real reasons, is just to talk about Hackett's personality, was one of the real reasons why he was number one on my list, for the exact same reason that Dan Quinn was so strongly linked to Denver, was because of the relatability, his relationship with George Payton, and the energy and the rah-rah and the high energy that he brought. We were hearing stuff like that with Nathaniel Hackett, but it's one thing to hear it, but it's another thing to see it unfold and to see how much he loves his family, to see how much he loves his team, to see how much he loved his previous team, to hear Justin reach out to guys like Preston Smith and A.J. Dillon talking about, what is this type of coach that we're getting, and then getting the exact same reviews that we as fans were hearing. Like it gives you so much as far as goosebumps goes, because you have this idea that, wow, the Broncos didn't just hire, a coach. They potentially hired the right coach. And that was, for my sake, that was why it was so in favor of getting a guy like Nathaniel Hackett, because, and we talked about this before with them, on the show before, but it's like, Vic, if you bring in a guy like a Dan Quinn, you're bringing him on to sort of like in a Band-Aid situation to mend a potential locker room that might have been broken as far as the defense goes. But no, you're bringing him on to potentially your greatest potential, your greatest strength of potential, what it could be in the offense. And then now you're bringing a coach that not only will unleash your entire offense, but will unleash everything as far as your team is concerned, like on every single phase, going from special teams to defense to offense.
Yeah, and there was two things that I wanted to bring up, and one was even how George Payton answered a question when he was in the press conference with Hackett, when he was asked if the reason that they brought in Hackett was because they wanted to get Aaron Rodgers. He was like, I just wanted to point out that this is the first time my family's been in the building, so that's amazing. And to answer your question, no.
It was scripted though.
I know, but it was perfect.
Yeah.
And then when you were watching the Behind the Broncos episode, at the very beginning, you heard them talking about what the players wanted in a coach, and they kept saying accountability. And that, to me, that was huge.
Big.
That was interesting. I heard that too. Just the other thing that I really want to see is I expect big things on May the 4th. I'm expecting at minimum.
Yes.
I'm expecting at least at a bare minimum a Luke Skywalker and a Leia costume from Hackett and his wife.
No, he's Han Solo.
Oh, yeah, sorry, he is Han Solo. So I'll allow some leniency.
He corrected himself. He corrected himself.
So the unfortunate thing with that, Rich, is that unfortunately the regular season doesn't happen on May the 4th. So I think it would have been amazing.
Broncos have social media and video crews. They can make it happen. I expect big things.
Well, okay.
Jar Jar Binks, I would have had him fired on the spot.
I agree.
Okay, so taking a look at Nathaniel Hackett, coordinators. That's the big thing. Obviously, he lost out on the offensive coordinator he wanted because he got promoted to offensive coordinator with the Packers. Obviously, Luke Getsy's not an option. It sounds like the tight end coach from the Packers, Justin Outen, is going to be the next interview. Mm-hmm. But as far as defensive coordinators go, Ejiro Evero, and yes, I got the name right. I checked. Mm-hmm. The Rams secondary coach, and apparently one of Nathaniel Hackett's like best friends.
Yep.
He was
for defensive coordinator, and that excites me a lot.
Yeah, Evero was the best man in Nathaniel Hackett's wedding.
Yeah.
I have one concern with that. I have one concern.
That he was the best man?
Yeah, because I do. And I'm genuinely concerned about that. I love the fact that they have a relationship, and I think that's important in business and on a team. But then you also have to just question how aggressive, how accountable will he be held if problems start occurring? It's one of those things where they say never hire family and friends in business.
Yeah.
Right. And so a genuine concern. I'm being honest. I love the fact that he runs a Fangio scheme when he comes from that tree, because that's what I really want us to maintain.
Well,
sorry.
Did you just math a Fangio system?
No, I'm saying that the fact that he said he's going to run a Fangio system, like we don't know. He knows.
Well, he comes from that.
But he also came from Wade Phillips, so it's not like he has firsthand knowledge of exactly what Fangio was running last
and
year.
It's actually not.
He knows like the general idea of what a Fangio system is, and he knows the general idea of what a Wade Phillips system is. But I'm guessing it's going to be a mixture and a molding of different defenses to match. And it's kind of like what Hackett said, like with the offense, it's going to change depending on who they're playing and what their players best, like the needs for the players are and what their skills are. I'm assuming it's going to be close to the same for the defense. Like there's going to be like a base system, but it's going to adjust depending on.
I'm okay with that, but my point is that if we start having some slippage and start seeing some things like we saw with like when Del Rio was here, where our defense looked like crap, I'm concerned that because they are such good friends, that there may not be the same level of accountability. I obviously don't know, but again, when you have that tight of a relationship, you do run that risk, regardless of how professional you are.
That'd be a Peyton call.
But to pig,
is
sorry,
Peyton in this whole. I'm sorry, Cam. Peyton.
No, cut you up, Glenn. Go ahead, Cam. You were talking first.
Yeah, Cam was trying to talk
Glenn.
this whole time, and then
Glenn.
the bald one came in and just started blabbing his mouth.
Go ahead, Hauser.
All right. So I forgot my point. What I was going to say, Rich, is George actually proved that you can be very tight with somebody and still deliver them bad news, because he didn't hire Dan Quinn and they are very close. So I am not worried about that at all. I think you can actually have real conversations and more honest conversations with people that you are closer to. But that's my personal opinion.
What I was going to talk about, to talk about what Rich was talking about with family, let's go even to the offensive side of the ball with what we saw with Fangio. I mean, like, you saw Rick Scangarello, and there was so much hoopla about, okay, was he right in firing or letting go Scangarello? And I mean, like, and then you go, okay, he let go to Scangarello. Who are the potential candidates? Well, we ended up getting Pat Shurmur because of the friendship and the relationship that Shurmur and Fangio had. In fact, we were even getting tea leaves that Shurmur wanted to work with Vic Fangio for like the longest time. And then, of course, as we all found out, it never materialized. And it never even worked. So I think that it's a fair criticism. Like, it is legitimately a fair criticism to think that a friendship or a brotherhood, if you will, with coaches like that, because it goes back to the whole loyalty thing that we've been talking about as far as firing coaches and what have you. I will say, though, I think that Evero is the most qualified. Despite all of that, I think Evero is the most qualified. And we talked about Vic Fangio. We talked about Wade Phillips. Let's not even forget, too, he was also under the Dom Capers scheme, to where I believe he was honestly one of his right-hand men as far as listening to Capers, looking through tendencies, understanding tendencies. So he's clearly got that experience. And then he's even got the experience of current defensive coordinator Raheem Morris, who was there with the Los Angeles Rams. And then the creator of the Tampa 2 defense, Monty Kiffin. Like, he's got experience under Monty Kiffin. So it isn't just this whole Fangio Phillips idea. It's just he's got literally a breadth of knowledge going from legend to another legend to another legend.
Right, and that's kind of where I was going with the whole comment on the defensive coordinator, because you see tweets out there, especially from Isaiah. Jiminy Christmas. He's like, I'm so excited that Evero's coming in because now we're going to keep the Fangio system. It's like, now hold on. He knows the Fangio system, but there's all of these other ones that he knows as well. And the part that excites me is that he's going to be able to mold the defense to the best way that fits the players. And that's what I get excited about. So I don't think the defense is going to look the same, but I think that a lot of the players that we've gotten used to over the last couple of years are going to remain with the Broncos and are going to be used with their skill set to the best of the knowledge. That's what I think.
Mike, I'm glad you said that, because that was another point from the introductory press conference of Hackett, is that he talked about molding the scheme to the players' talents and not the other way, or expecting players to adapt to what the scheme is. And that is the exact opposite of what we've seen under Pat Shurmur. So, I mean, that was music to my ears to hear that he is willing to make all sorts of adjustments to his scheme to match the talents of these players, and he can't wait to see what those talents are.
Now, there is one coach that we there's been more, but we know that there's one coach that's probably not going to return. And I know that Mr. Parker has Cam hates Hackett is what he put in his name. I know that Cam is not a fan, but it sounds like Munchak is not coming back. Now, while Munchak is obviously the best, if not the second best offensive line coordinator, like coach in the NFL, I'm okay with it if Hackett is able to pick an offensive line coach that fits the scheme he wants to run. If it's a better scheme fit than Munchak, then I'm okay with it.
Well, but
but it sucks.
Isn't that what he should do anyway? Like, hire a coach that should be qualified anyway. Like,
right, and that's why I'm not as upset with losing Munchak if he picks the right one.
the only reason why I'm upset with Mike Munchak is like there's this whole narrative, and it's that he never ran outside zone, and it's just like, well, he was here with Rick Scangarello back in this whole Shannon type system, so he ran the outside zone, and so it's like this idea that he's not familiar with it, he's unknown to it. I mean, it just seems off to me, and then also with the simple fact that he. Like the greatest offensive line mind we've ever seen. And I mean, if you mean to tell me that he doesn't know how to run outside zone, then he shouldn't belong, as far as an outside line coach. But
honestly, I think it's more. Sorry, I think it's more that it seems like he's wanting to make that Coach Hackett is wanting to make a clean break. Like, this is what it was. This is what I want. I'm going to get rid of as many as I can. Keep the ones that we really need. But he's completely changing the culture, is what it seems like to me.
Yeah.
Mike, apparently Doug Marrone has already quit the offensive line coach job at Alabama.
Yep.
And he's going to
be. Dude, you're so disappointed right now. Look at Cam's face.
So, somewhat breaking news. It looks
Cam,
like
I'd like to play you in poker. I'm okay to fly down to Denver at any point.
Cam's a giggler.
I prefer high stakes, bring lots of money, and we'll kill it. Okay.
You should see Cam when he's got a draw 4 when you're playing Uno with him. Like, he's just beside himself. But it sounds like Harbaugh is going to Minnesota, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, like for an interview or
no,
the
it's
job.
done.
That's interesting. I never.
Wait, who's going to Minnesota?
Harbaugh.
Oh.
Did we ever hear Harbaugh tied to Minnesota? I know there was a connection
Oh, yeah.
with
He was tied to the Raiders for a long time.
Well, not for like
the new
a
GM.
week.
The last week has been like
really tight.
Yeah.
Cam, to your point, just to your point about the offensive line and Munchak, we saw Dalton Reisner have his absolute best year with our team in Scangarello's offense, as well as having Munchak as his offensive line coach here in Denver. So, and then since then, in a scheme that didn't, in my opinion, just simply didn't fit him, he regressed a fair amount. So, I do push back a little bit on the narrative that you were pushing back on as well, to say, a guy like that knows how to coach all the varying styles that are required, in my opinion. And we saw proof of that with a rookie who regressed in one style and progressed in another from college.
Yeah. Can we have like a one of those sound bites? That just says shocked face every time Richie Rich disagrees or like has an obscure opinion of
yeah, well, I can put it in an overlay.
Shocked face.
But I will say, as far as just the overall transition to this outside zone, that's just the overall intrigue with me. So as much as I'm disappointed with this idea that moving along from Mike Munchak, the fact that Hackett understands this rich Shanahan system of running outside zone gets me so excited for this possibility of what they're going to be able to do. And to what you talked about with Reisner, I reached out to Dalton and asked him what he felt about it, and he said he's excited. He's excited for the future, and so he's just. I think that if you think about it, like he is one of those like maybe main guys that you think about like could very well flourish in those types of outside zones, and so I think that. Getting that type of offensive chemistry again, I think would really benefit every single party. And I'm just drooling thinking about the possibility of Javonte Williams just running in that outside zone.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's okay to be speechless.
I don't know. Comments. Rich actually said, "I agree." I don't know if you heard that, but
yeah. I don't know. I personally, I'm interested to see Javonte Williams in the outside zone, just like that. You need that quick step to get outside, and he's not like the quickest in the world, but we'll see. I mean, him in his second year, regardless, I think is going to be good. So
well, he also has the ability to shake off that first tackle, which helps. So even if he's not the quickest getting through that hole, he'd be able to at least shimmy that first potential kind of hit.
Yeah, right? But the problem is though, when you get hit in the backfield, is that then everybody else closes in on you because that delays you, and so like that's why he like after the line of scrimmage when he's gotten hit before and he's gotten to bounce off, it's been good because there's not as many. Right. But like when you have the whole other 11 right there on you, it's a lot tougher.
So what players do you think are going to benefit the most from having Nathaniel Hackett as the head coach?
Jerry Jeudy.
Yep.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Well, do you think he's going to be with the team?
I think so.
Oh.
Probably, or maybe not. But if he is with the team,
do you really think Denver would trade Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah.
Yes.
For Rodgers?
Yes.
The one I'm worried about the most is I don't want is Draymond Jones.
Oh, I can't.
I don't want Draymond Jones, and I feel like that might happen because but the one thing that gives me hope is it might more be Bradley Chubb, because I don't know if they're going to be able to retain the yes. I don't know if they're going to be able to retain the Smiths on the edges, because I think Preston Smith is a free agent, so that's gonna be.
I've got kind of a wild card with the trade package. Noah Fant. I mean, I think Noah Fant is a potential
That's
trade.
not a wild
piece.
card.
But I
pushing for that.
But I think that not just for the simple fact that you could trade him in with the tight end room, but Robert Tonyan is a free agent.
Yeah,
like Robert and Tonyan is a guy that if you're bringing in the tight end coach, the guy that literally groomed Tonyan under Rodgers, you could bring in a guy like that along with Albert Okwuegbunam and maybe not lose a beat. And so I think that. And also too, I think there is a distinct. I don't know how logical it is, but I think there's a distinct possibility that there might not even be, players involved in this trade. I mean, like if the Packers are really, bent on getting rid of Rodgers, like you very well could see a deal that happens fairly quickly, and a deal that happens to where they don't get rid of players, and especially with the simple fact that they are. Significantly under the cap that they are. But that also, to the rookie deal point, could trigger players like Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, Draymond Jones, a Noah Fant, players like that, because of the fact that they are significantly over the cap.
So Albert Breer was on with Dan Patrick the other day, and Albert said that 3 first-rounders would do it. And Dan actually chimed in and said that his sources are telling him that the Packers don't want players, that they just want picks.
That's true, yeah. And so that's one thing that I talked about too. Yeah.
Hold on, where was it?
You're alluded to.
3 first rounds. Go for it. I'm totally
in a heartbeat. Because you know what, 2 of those first rounds should be very, very deep in the in the first round. Perhaps
Jeffrey Bryan said you can have Timmy P or Cortland, take your pick. They can't afford him.
No.
Yeah.
So
they do need receivers though. Like the Packers, like they have
August.
Sorry, they have
Randall Cobb. They've got Jawan.
They have like all their receivers are free agents, and so is Robert Tonyan. So like I think Jerry Jeudy would be an option definitely if that does happen.
Have me dying over here.
Oh. All right. Is there anything else that we want to talk about involving Mr. Coach Hackett? Anything else anybody wants to bring up?
I can't wait.
Does anyone have any lines on who else is coming over potentially with him, like in terms of positional coaches and that kind of stuff?
What about Bakhtiari?
That's a player, not a coach.
It doesn't matter.
I know the name. Coach. I know name.
I will say Anthony Weaver's a name that's along with Ejiro Evero. You wish.
He's Japanese now.
But Anthony Weaver's a guy that for defensive coordinator. So it's probably between both of them. So he's a guy that honestly is a little bit fascinating. I mean, he's a guy that he's spent his entire career as a defensive line coach, except for 2020. He was the defensive coordinator with Houston. And then he was the defensive line coach again with Baltimore, but he was also on the offensive side, which is fascinating. Like he was a run game coordinator with the Baltimore Ravens. So that was his first year, doing some stuff with the offense and run game. So he's a name to certainly watch. And maybe he brings Calais Campbell home.
maybe. For me, it's a Ejiro bust. Like
I agree.
I really want Ejiro. I'm not impressed with Anthony Weaver's.
Sorry, maybe I'll be specific. I'm referring to guys like, for example, do we think like Azani's safe? Do we think like do we think he's gonna replace coaches of like that?
Christian Parker staying
Parker's
on.
confirmed to stay, right?
Parker is confirmed. My brother from another and downstairs roommate Christian Parker is confirmed to stay.
Yeah, that's it so far. I don't know about Zach Azani. Kolar also haven't heard anything about.
I thought there was one more coach that was confirmed to stay.
Pat Shurmur.
No.
On the defense there was Kolar and Reggie Herring were possibilities, but I haven't heard anyone besides Parker as a definite.
It'll probably, a lot of it'll probably wait until, or at least the defensive side will wait till whoever the DC is.
Right.
And yeah. I want to see if Ejiro is like the possibility of him coming in the first week of the 2-week span to come in for an interview, but I don't know if they're just going to take that whole time or what.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be quite interesting, especially with the Senior Bowl this week. And, you would like to have your staff there, but at the same time, you can have certain soundboards there that were remnants, which might honestly trigger a potential for staff members to stay, honestly, because if you're thinking about it from the standpoint that maybe they could be using that as like audition for keeping them there. Like as far as like if you're bringing them to the Senior Bowl without announcing a new staff, like you could bring them there because I believe they're still under contracts. You could bring guys like a Herring and Christian Parker and Bill Collar there to potentially be a soundboard. And then if Hackett and Peyton and the rest of the entire committee don't necessarily see eye to eye with it, then they'll probably move on. Is probably my guess. They could use it as a true audition tape as far as keeping those coaches on board. But yeah, I'm quite fascinated, honestly, to see what they do. Because that was honestly one of the biggest, I will say that was one of the biggest deters for me with Collar leaving and them hiring Dan Quinn, was I was a little bit unsure as far as losing Bill Collar in that type of scenario. So I think that you could keep Bill Collar more than likely in this type of scenario, simply because Dan Quinn was a defensive line coach, and we all know Bill Collar is so well respected as a defensive line coach.
Oh, Curtis Modkins.
Right.
Wasn't he announced as staying as well for running backs?
No, we haven't heard anything. We've not heard anything on Modkins yet.
I thought it was. Dang. I hope he does.
Yeah.
I like Modkins.
I do too.
You like Boggins? Right. That's unfortunate.
Sure. Whatever. It is what it is. Okay, running through the chat here. See if there's anything that I missed. I don't think I did. I'm not putting Johnny's up. Oh, what about Raheem Morris? Would he take a – I know that like Morris and McVay have been having issues. Is that a possibility at defensive coordinator if he leaves the Rams? Or?
No. I'm very – I say I'd be kind of eyeballing maybe a Tampa situation, because there's been some rumors that
they got Bowles.
So I think that, you could potentially poach some staff members, because I think there was some rumors being circulating that the staff might, what is it?
Are we not going to talk about how Hackett was able to draw Goofy and behind the Broncos?
Yeah.
That wasn't him.
Yeah, we should have.
Was that him or was that his daughter?
Was Nathaniel Hackett goofy the whole time? Yeah, that'd be great.
Shock face.
We used to have a follower. Is that what it's called? Like a watcher,
Goofy.
Or whatever, named Goofy. Oh. And we never knew what his name
Goofy,
was.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was Hackett.
Now he's too busy coaching the Broncos.
He was spying the whole time. That's why he was in there. All right. So I think that's going to about do it for us. We've been about an hour and a half. And honestly, I don't even care how long we go if there's still stuff to talk about. Is there anything else to talk about? I don't think so. I think we covered it all. Because we'll make Super Bowl picks next week. Because we got Pro Bowl this weekend, right?
I predict the Bengals versus Rams. I'm going with that.
Nice. Is there anything we should be watching for with the Senior Bowl?
The quarterback.
Yeah.
Probably
a lot of things. What do you want?
What's for the Broncos as it stands now? What would be the best thing for us to focus on? Quarterbacks, edge, linebackers.
Yes.
Edge rusher.
You're not helping Boggins at all.
I mean, yeah, I'm sorry, but
Yes.
I know.
Just the grass.
Yeah, I wouldn't focus too much on. I wouldn't focus too much on quarterbacks. I mean, I guess just edge. Yeah. Edge and quarterbacks.
For me, it's edge and right tackles in general.
Yeah, tackles.
Hold on.
Tackles.
Hold on.
Tackles.
Hold on.
Ooh.
Okay.
My own fun watching Boggins change his name there.
His names? Yeah.
Oh
all right. So that is going to about do it for us. So make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share, turn on notifications so you can catch all of our content when it is posted. Want to thank Mr. Cameron Parker for joining us on the show again today. Mr. Parker, where can we catch you on social media or on the intrawebs?
You guys can follow me. You guys can intentionally stalk me on Twitter if you like. But no, unfortunate, slide into the DMs, please.
Whoa.
But you guys can potentially stalk me on Twitter at Cameron Parker PO. Follow the work that I do at Predominantly Orange. Listen to the podcast that I do over that's associated with Mile High Sports called Mainly Broncos. You guys can follow that Twitter handle at Mainly Broncos. And speaking of quarterbacks and Predominantly Orange, I'm actually in the process of doing my own research as far as, ranking my top 5 college quarterbacks. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Ooh. Right, I wonder who he's going to have number 1.
Definitely not
hands.
Make sure you're following Cam there at all of the areas he just listed, mainly Broncos.
You don't know who
and
number
also
1 is, Cam.
Make sure you're tuning into our other podcast, Nothing Rise, Orange and Blue podcast. It airs every Thursday, 7654 on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Twitch. And catch an all-new episode of Broncos Breakdown with Bronco Bill every Wednesday at 7654. Go ahead, Boggins. You're talking about number 1 quarterback. Go ahead. Go right ahead.
Don't you see it? He needs help.
Go right ahead. Okay. All right. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna close the show with everybody's favorite thing to do, especially Mr. Boggins. And we're gonna close out with a mile high five. So everybody get your hands to the side and we say hold on, I got to stop laughing. Mile high five. And nothing. He didn't do nothing for that one. That was very disappointing. I hate myself. There you go. All right. We'll see you guys for Broncos Breakdown tomorrow and on the Nothing Rise Orange Blue podcast on Thursday. Bye-bye, everybody.